Chapter 150. Expectations that became true. On that day, I had finished the improvement of the surveillance magic and proceeded to test it. My current location is at My current location is at the Tactical Class Military Operated Battle Command Post, aka the control room. Going with the flow of things, I decided to give it a cool name, but now it's a little too long, and I'm regretting it. To be frank, only a few people knew its original name since everyone simply calls it Control Room. It's newly established next to Vildora's private quarters in the 100th floor of the dungeon. It's made possible to come in and out to this place from Tempest's Strategy Conference Hall. The important base was fundamentally established inside the dungeon. The results were excellent. Several large screens that were used during the tournament were set in this room. Each of them displayed a scene from different places, the various areas within Great Forest, and their trade route with the Dwarf Kingdom. I'm now able to observe various important points one by one. Even the state of the sea routes and the Kanat mountain ranges can be displayed without any problem. The concept is simple, utilizing the physics magic Megiddo, God's Wrath, which I created, lens-shaped water drops, which were handled by the spirit. It's excellent as I can use it with low cost. The images enlarged by the large lens are reflected into a mirror to be relayed to a similar mirror deployed near the stratopos, and the images will be transferred to this place. Note: mean stratopos, the boundary between mesosphere and stratosphere. At the same time, the transmission of images is directly dealt with via spatial control, leaving no moment of gap due to instantaneous transfer of data. The images projected on the screen had HD quality after being processed by Wisdom King Raphael. There are two projections in case one gets destroyed or is being deceived. Now then, there's another merit from the completion of the surveillance system. I'm able to use Megiddo, God's Wrath, while being inside this control room. I tested it by shooting it at Gupta's feet, who was training at the square, but I didn't think I would actually succeed. The Gupta's face, who jumped up in surprise, was unforgettable. You fool, it's because you let your guard down. So I pushed him instead. Conversely though, I thought that Gupta wasn't so bad. In addition, the performance of Megiddo's God's Wrath has improved. Originally, it was optimized by Great Sage, but the current Wisdom King Raphael didn't seem to agree to it. It developed it more meticulously and had developed a system of 24-hour satellites that would float in the sky. It's usable even at night. With my magic essence as the fuel, there's now a Great Spirit class geostationary satellite permanently hovering near the stratopos. Once it runs out, I would simply need to supplement it. In addition, its position that unrelated to day and night make it could convergence direct light, direct sunlight. So it's possible for it to reflect and radiate energy anytime. It can't be helped that energy loss would occur, but still, the power of the light ray was more powerful than before and can be used at night. It's natural, but there's also a bit of energy loss even during the day. As the amount of light it converged increases, so too does the amount of heat. It's now even possible to exert powers on par with the heat ray gun. I might even be able to completely annihilate the human army without moving a step. I had such impressions as I've been carrying out the magic modification. Well then, with the images of various areas displayed onto the large screen, the experiment was a success. When I came back to the officer after I confirmed the result, Shuna arrived and told me there was a guest. From what I can see, there's quite a lot of them. Oh well, you could say that most of my work involve interacting with guests, and the rest are developing magic and coming up with items that looks interesting. Oh, and assigning the right man for the right job. Playing is also part of my work. With this feeling, I've faced my guests seriously. I was guided by Shuna to the reception room. Inside the room were four individuals waiting with nervous looks on their faces. It was a familiar trio, and an old man I've seen for the first time. The trio was Shinji and company, who played an active role in the previous capturing of the dungeon before. First of all, we greet each other, and then I hear their circumstances. As expected, under secret order from the Empire, they seem to be sent in order to collect information for the campaign. They formally introduced their name and started explaining their internal conditions. They've consented that this was an order from Yuki. I thought it would have been him, but unfortunately, our dungeon was more difficult than what Yuki had anticipated. Or rather, it was also harder than what I anticipated. This really isn't something people can simply laugh off. If you think normally, you will not think about such a growth, or rather that evolution. I think it's an inevitable thing. Well, that's all good. Let's forget about it. Well, afterwards, they seem to have reported this to Yuki, but for some reason, it has leaked out to the leaders of the other corps. They were caught and seems to have been subjected to interrogation. They were doused with drug to make them submit, and in the end, a bomb appeared to be planted into their hearts. At that time, Shinji's teacher, who was also the imperial court magician Gadra Rushi, who seemed to be the old man that came along with them, rescued them and escaped to this place. Wait, are you guys all right with that bump? When I asked, it has already been removed. We bought a new bracelet and detonated it in the dungeon. Shinji replied with a nonchalant face. It seemed the bomb was set to detonate itself if it was removed via surgery. It seemed to be a cliche bomb, so it looks like they didn't think up another good plan. Anyway, as soon as they were rescued from the jail by Gadra Roshi, they came to decide with Shinji transfer magic. They went to the labyrinth at once, then blew up the bomb inside the labyrinth before the Empire side realized their escape and detonates the bomb. Well, certainly they would revive even if they died inside the dungeon, but that certainly was a drastic act. Didn't you consider that it might affected the traps or monster battles inside the dungeon? So after I inquired him, his face became pale and he was at a loss for words. Apparently, they were panicked and didn't think to that extent. Hey, Shinji, oi, don't tell me that you didn't think about that. So Mark retorted, ha 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 ha. I had thought about that, of course, Shinji answered, whilst avoiding Mark's gaze. Oh well, at that time, Shinji had insisted that he's going to treat it later with his abilities, but this couldn't be retorted as Shinji had tried it first. After that, Gadra said that it would be better off to not in believe Yuki. If that was the case, they should defect. I then pay more attention to Gadra Roshi for the first time. He doesn't look too showy, but he worn a high quality like magic clothes. He is a sharp-eyed old man, so that Gadra-san, why you come here together with them? To my question, to be honest, I'm a reincarnator. Gadra-san suddenly brought up a shocking revelation. The trio also surprised as they stared intently at Gadra Rushi. According to what he said, he seemed to reincarnated many times in order to master the grand magic. Then, he also participated in the previous Valdora subjugation war and was splendidly killed. Honestly, it was the right choice for me to finish the reincarnation ritual beforehand. I wanted to witness it with my own eyes. The highest pinnacle of monster brought about by nature. There were only four dragonkind that born unto this world. They were the apex of monsters, the strongest being of this world. And then, as this was said from his actual fighting experience, he didn't think the Empire would triumph over Voldora, so he said this to me. And the demon lord that become a sworn friend with that Vildora, aka me, had raised his interest. I don't feel any particular obligation to the Empire. The core that I had brought up with great care has been taken away. Now I have no more attachments to it. Besides, that Adalman resides in the dungeon of this country, or so I heard from my disciple. Wow, it seems that Gadra Roshi was Adalman's friend from several thousand years ago. At that time, in the west, near the our side of the Jura Great Forest, was a small country. Secret magic research seemed to be conducted in that country. In a few brief words, he would read treasured books of each royal palace and build up his knowledge whenever he reincarnated. It seems he was a born egotist, and he asserted that he have no relation to things like loyalty. He's quite the old man. I'll keep the fact I actually respect him quite a bit to myself. Of course, the details about Ramirez and the dungeon, he has heard it all from Shinji's tale, so it seems. While whistling and pretending that he didn't know anything, he seemed to have played tricks on Shinji and company to make them talk, but there was no point to do that anymore. But there was no point to that anymore. The weapon that Shinji brought back and the magic crystal was most intriguing. Those greedy people started to cry loudly for the war to start. When all is said and done, I think there's still more 10 years. I planned to reincarnate before the war starts, but I failed. However, the cause of that is the youngster named Yuki, the one that's standing out recently with enough influence to ascend to the top. and become the new core leader. He leaked the information to the core leaders, to the other core leaders, and obviously had the interest to cause the war. Well, that has nothing to do with me anymore. Incidentally, I've decided to help my pupils because I was planning to escape with haste. So the guard Gadrajisan brazenly declared. But if his words are true, then it's according to my expectations. Yuki made the fact that high quality magic crystal and high performance arms can be acquired from the labyrinth to be known. Then what will happen? I could expect that people who suggest to start the war early would appear from the Empire side. To be honest, I'm not the patient kind. Over this 1 year, I've been wholeheartedly waiting, and it's been peeving me off. Let's just finish this war, defeat Yuki, and save Chloe. Therefore, I want that side to start attacking us, and I will ignore these three. Otherwise, there will no reason to overlook them who we known were spies. All right, it's as planned. Shinji was surprised with my declaration, but Gadra Jisan simply nodded with a smug look on his face. He seems to notice our ulterior motive. Ulterior motive. Of course, Yuki probably already see through my thought, though he seems to have hopped on the plan and begun moving. According to what Gadra Jisan said, the Empire seems to have started to prepare for the start of the war. I hear that surrender advice will be done once rather than the declaration of war. Then I'll simply follow it if they started the battle. There will be no mercy after that. If that's the case, this side also don't need to cut any corners. I'll just finish it in a flash and uproot the root of evil. The three deserters were accepted at my own discretion. Gadrajisan was given the guest treatment, but this old man ended up as the new guardian of the 60th floor later and become a hidden boss besides the demon golem though. That was a story unrelated to the current moment. Next scene, the conference of the war in the large conference room had ended, and the emperor was relaxing in his room, with a beautiful woman with hair of azure attending by his side. Emperor Ludra was facing the beautiful girl at his side. Well then, the pawns seemed to be all present. Vil grinned. Do you think your younger brother would come out this time? So he asked her with an intimate tone. The beauty, Vilgrind, being asked, naturally replied with the emperor. The reason why he asked her that was because she was one of the dragon kind, the strongest being, the scorching dragon, Vilgrind. Yeah, Ludra. He would come out because that child loves festivals. Is that so? That's right, huh? It would be great if our army could defeat him. Otherwise, this time for sure, I want to checkmate Guy and my elder sister, Velzado. Fufu, so you're aiming at Guy. If you fight against Veldora, then there'll be a chance for me. Yes, it's vexing. Otherwise, I'll need to deal with that child Veldora quickly. Ha ha ha. However, this time, my ability, the special skill of my ultimate skill, Justice King Michael, enabled me to utilize the Armageddon army of angel Guy companions seem to increase in power, though they have united yet. This time, we have an overwhelming advantage. Oh, then, should I execute the plan to bring that child over to this side? Once taken down, he can't be Guy Peace. Do you want to capture him after I weaken him? Fumu, let's go with that. However, a human's flesh really is inconvenient. Every time I reincarnate, inheriting the soul and ego, the ability limitation I suffer depends on the timing. This time, I've waited until I'm at perfect condition. My army is well prepared, and there's no limitation on my ability. If you can focus consciousness, Veldora's consciousness, my ruler's control should be able to take control of him. Oh, then victory is imminent. But somehow that child doesn't seem to be in his usual condition ever since his seal was removed. His rampaging like violent magic essence storms had vanished completely. Maybe he isn't back to his usual self yet. Don't mind it. Guy would simply discard weak people. He wouldn't make them into pawns. Despite this, he's been raising demon lords, but he has yet to control them. Actually, the newcomer demon lord named Rimuru seems to be powerful popular with the other demon lords. That's true. It would be against the rules for Guy if he turned human into his control. And it would be against the rules for us to turn Demon Lord into our pawns. But that's just fine. Before that Demon Lord Rimuru grow up, it's best for us to crush him as soon as possible. Even so, the Demon Lords gathered in that place at a good timing. Rimuru and Ramirez, we can take down two Demon Lords at the same time. He referred to Rimuru and Ramirez with basically treating them as small fries. Indeed, well, Let's try to rage as flashy as possible. Once Veldora's in our grasp, their role ends. You'll bestow upon them a reign of mercy with your ultimate skill, Charity King Raguel. It might be good if we conquered that town quickly, so let's give them some charity after such a long time. Let give let's give them a peaceful death, blessing. The two spoke for a bit, and then on the next day, a large army from the empire, with a size unprecedented in history, depart with Monster Country's Tempest as their destination. End of chapter 150.